Andrews requested me on Patreon to review the mob comedy Get Shorty, which was directed by Barry Sonnenfeld and based on the book by Elma Leonard. I've actually read the book, although I won't make a comparison between it and the film adaptation, as that was a gazillion years ago. Nonetheless, I remember finding it a clever and funny depiction of the film industry, and same goes for the movie, which becomes a fun and breezy Hollywood satire and a different take on the typical gangster story. One of the highlights of the movie does come from John Travolta as the lone sharp Chili Palmer. From his introduction, he depicts the character with the needed suaveness, but he's also clearly someone with a lot on his mind and understandably tired of dealing with gangsters. One of the most endearing aspects of Chili is how much of a cinephile he is, and the script gives him a genuine joy and enthusiasm for the art form. It becomes delightful hearing him talk about his love for movies, whether it's an Orson Welles classic or some low-budget monster B-movie he rented from Blockbuster. This is a character who have a gun pointed towards him, and yet he still decides to go on a whole speech about Western movie actors. A lot of Get Shorty involves Chili facing down someone who's making deals for this movie he wants to produce, and all these scenes have a terrific rhythm to them in the acting and dialogue. A lot of credit for that not only goes to Sonnenfeld's direction, but also the screenplay by Scott Frank. It's such a sharp and witty script with a lot of memorable and funny exchanges between the characters as they all try to one-up each other with their deal-making and supposed smarts. The tone of the movie is already set early on with a hilarious conversation about the difference between EG and IE, and it keeps that feel through the rest of the film. Elma Leonard was particularly pleased with the adaptation, and Frank would even write the screenplay for another Leonard story a few years later, with Out of Sight, a similarly great movie. Get Shorty is able to weave all these different characters and subplots together without getting overly complicated, and there's interest in seeing how all of these storylines conclude. Regarding the other actors, I think the standout of the supporting cast is Dennis Farina as Chili's mob rival, Ray Barbone. He gives a hilarious performance, someone constantly tired of Chili and often trying to make trouble. Farina portrays his annoyance to everyone in the city of Los Angeles perfectly, and there's so many wonderful touches he gives to the character, like the way he hails a taxi. Gene Hackman is also fantastic as the B-movie producer Harry Zim, who's basically a Charles Band type. Hackman is primarily known for playing tough characters, so it's funny seeing him play someone who tries to be tough and copy Chili's approach to intimidating people, but ends up buckling. We also have Danny DeVito as movie star Martin Weir, DeVito having a bit of fun with the star image. Leonard apparently based the character in his book on Dustin Hoffman, who was shorter than he expected, hence the title Get Shorty. DeVito is also the producer of this movie, so there's a funny aspect to the plot revolving around trying to get him to be in the movie when he was the one who bought the rights to Leonard's book and was even originally going to play Chili. But then he got the opportunity to direct Matilda, and because he was busy preparing for that movie, he ended up taking the smaller role of Martin Weir instead. Meanwhile, Delroy Lindo also does a great job as one of Zim's investors, and there's some great interplay between him and Travolta. Everyone in the movie completely understood the tone of the film, which, despite being about gangsters, remains light on its feet throughout, and there's an investment in hoping Chili Palmer can secure the deal to get this movie made. There's also an entire storyline involving a bunch of money in an airport locker and the shenanigans surrounding that, and it's amusing seeing how different characters react to this obvious ploy. There's just an incredible amount of charm that runs through Get Shorty, and that includes John Lurie's score, which has an upbeat and catchy jazz theme that perfectly opens the movie. Even though he had nothing to do with this outside of convincing John Travolta to set the lead role, there's almost a Quentin Tarantino feel to it, with the dialogue in particular. There's a bigger connection there too. DeVito was an executive producer on Pulp Fiction, with his Jersey Films production company helping to get that film made. And then a few years after this, Tarantino would direct his own Elma Leonard adaptation with Jackie Brown. And the premise of Get Shorty, with gangsters getting mixed in with Hollywood deal-making and a lead character with a love for classic cinema, recalls True Romance, which Tarantino wrote. Much like Charade is considered the best Alfred Hitchcock movie Hitchcock never made, I see Get Shorty as the best Quentin Tarantino movie Tarantino never made. However, the film would not be as excellent as it is without the talents of its own filmmaking team. Barry Sonnenfeld did a fantastic job of directing the film, and of the movies he has made, this is my personal favorite. Scott Frank's screenplay is also incredibly sharp, funny, and clever, and knows how to balance its large ensemble of characters, all of whom are well played by the entire cast. I was definitely excited to revisit Get Shorty yet again and get swept up in its wild story about how the complications and deals involved in getting a movie produced might not be too different from the complications and deals between members of the mob. If you've seen Get Shorty, let me know your thoughts in the comments, and thanks for the request, Andrew.